at this point in time. As I said, we have Madhu Kela, founder of NK Ventures, now joining us. Madhu, good afternoon. Great to have you with us here. Thanks very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Bit of a tougher time. I mean, you know, I remember when this 50% was announced, we were speaking and I put it out there as well. I said, well, I don't think this 25% will go into effect. Well, it's gone into effect. So we'll have to live through the pain, hopefully for not too long. What is your own sense, Madhu? How does this work out from here? And also from a market standpoint, sometimes, you know, if you just take a look at it, from the first time this 50% was announced, the market actually is higher, it's not lower. So has it really had a big impact? Not really. But is this one of those cases where slowly the impact will start to show up in various segments, etc.? Or the market is adequately and intelligently pricing this? Your thoughts?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prashant, for having me. It's an important day. I think I would say that, first of all, India and US have a very long strategic relationship and a long history of how this relationship has got carried out. And if you look at the latest statements, which are even coming in from the US government side, it doesn't look like there is any standoff clearly. So my point is that it's only a matter of time before this tariff situation will get resolved. I'm at least not making this as a base case that it will not get resolved and it will carry on for a long period of time. That is surely not the base case. The other thing, Prashant, is that, you know, let's say if it gets resolved in 1 or 2 or 3 months, a lot of people, because this noise has been going on. So I was talking to a diamond trader friend of mine, and he was saying that whatever we need to export to US, because we were living in uncertainty, 80-90% of that is already being done in the last few months. So it is, this season actually is not in a way lost. So whether do we do the deal now or we do it in 15 days, I don't think it will have a huge impact on these businesses which are talked about, that they will suffer a lot. Third point, I think whatever we are reading, Prashant, and as much as you and me both are have the same source, I think the government seems to be in a really mood to take this as an opportunity to decisively address the issue of economy. I think GST cut is a decisive step which was needed, and I think many more measures should come to make sure that we are able to really boost the Indian economy and Indian consumption, and we are in our own feet. And I feel whatever indication which we have got directly from the Prime Minister, starting with the 15th August announcement till date, they are all pointing towards the resolve to really put the economy back on track, and whatever this setback which could have happened because of this issue is more than compensated by our growth on the domestic side. So sure. I would not be very perturbed, Prashant. Obviously, if you tell me that this is not going to get resolved and it may take 1 year to get resolved, then we'll have to assess things in a different manner.
So this does not, in your base case, and that is the only base case, right? How can one imagine that 50% will be permanent, right? Cannot be. So it doesn't change your investing framework or the kind of things you would get exposure to. Maybe there will be lead and lag and some things will get delayed, etc. But that's about it. That's the way to kind of treat this, right?
Oh, Prashant, the way I look at it, you know, in 35 years of investing career, whenever we have got this kind of a blip in the market, and we know that event is not going to sustain forever, I think this is where we get opportunities to really buy companies which we like. So typically for a person like me, I'll keep my list ready and I'll keep some prices in mind. And if those stocks, whether they belong to this category or they belong to a category where there's a collateral damage because of the market being in a frame of mind which it is, that is where you get opportunity to really invest money.
Absolutely. So Madhu, Yeah, I mean, completely take your point. And I think we heard similar views from Mr. Ramdev Agarwal in the morning as well. He too was of the opinion that this is not going to persist too long. But let me play devil's advocate just for a second over here. You said if it's prolonging to, let's say, a year and there's still no trade deal, then you'll have to reassess. But let's say if this impasse continues for 3 to 6 months, because the rhetoric from the US side is very high right now. If it does persist for 3 to 6 months, then will you have to reassess the expectations of an earnings revival? Because that is really what investors and what the market has been waiting for so long.
Surabhi, there are lots and ifs and buts, and it is your opinion versus my opinion, or it is XYZ's opinion. I'm just saying right now, we all have only opinions, right? My personal sense, as I was saying you, because this has been going on for a long period of time, so wherever we could actually prepone our exports to America, like current year, we have already done more than 50% of what we normally do to America in the first 4 or 5 months. So that is what I'm trying to say, that a lot of sectors like gems and jewelry, like maybe textiles, like maybe footwear, where the exports may have got preponed because of this uncertainty, both from a buyer as well as from a seller perspective. The other thing, Surabhi, that, as the market is taking, that this is like so many $1 billion, 50% duty, it's not as simple as that. A major portion of our exports are also exempt from what we are talking, maybe around 50%. On the other 50%, if you analyze on a $13 billion gems and jewelry, you have only 5% value addition. So it's not, and it is not representing gems and jewelry in that sense, is not representing anywhere in Nifty or in the broader market. Our total footwear exports to America is $2 billion. Now, don't you think that with this excise duty cut and the current mood of buying Indian manufactured in India, we can consume additional $2 billion of footwear in this country of 145 crore people?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And that argument, absolutely.
And that point is important. I spoke to the head of the Textile Exporters Association, and I spoke to a jewelry company as well. There's a lot of pre-exports which have happened to beat the deadline. So as you said, in the case of textiles, I think you scored. I also heard the same stat that already YTD exports to US have exceeded what we saw last year. So this season, I think what you began by saying, this season in that sense is not lost, even if this tariff negotiation takes time. That's an important point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other point, Prashant, is that, we are in a buoyant capital market situation wherein, after years, equity has actually become a real asset class, right? And in this asset class, the kind of flow, one of your colleague Anuj only asked me that have we kind of become Atmanirbhar in the stock market? I think stock market has taken a lead in we becoming a Atmanirbhar India. That 85% of our market actually is owned by us. Only 15% today is by foreigners, and this is the lowest foreign holding I have seen in many years at 15%. So I think the kind of domestic flow in the mood which is there for capital markets in India, Prashant, unless it really turns out to be a debacle, which is not certainly my base case. Yeah. I think Indian investors are becoming very intelligent. You see, whenever the market gives this kind of a blip, you will see increased activity from domestic shareholders, domestic investors who are actually, pouring in money whenever there is a meaningful correction in the market.
Yeah. Madhu, later when I'll be talking to friends, etc., and I say, well, I spoke to Madhu today, they'll all ask, well, what is on his radar? What is on his list? So you said, I have my list ready, prices ready. So tell us, what is on that list? A few names, ideas, how are you thinking about it? Yes.
I think you decode it all the time. You know that we don't talk about individual stocks. I wish I could, but I don't talk about it, and not because I want to hide or anything. The problem with talking individual companies, Prashant, is that I buy these companies.
I understand. But have stocks... But have things come sharply down in many? I mean, I was looking at, for example, a name like Gokuldas Export. I don't know. I don't think you own it or have owned it. But I mean, there are individual opportunities on the back of this event which have come off. But they are, and of course, I mean, maybe in the broader space as well, there has been underperformance. But we've not had very sharp corrections on the back of it, right? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah,
So far.
wherever there has been a correction, Prashant, like what you saw, what happened in the whole FMCG sector. Like, it came, what you saw, what happened in the auto sector. So, in the market, people who are sitting in the sideline, only an astrologer will be able to take that the deal will happen on this and this and this date, Investors will only use this as an opportunity to buy whatever they want to buy. I'm just giving you just as an example. Now, pharma industry may not have anything to do with this tariff. And I personally believe very strongly that US will not put any kind of a tariff on pharma, specifically on generic pharma, because majority population of theirs is dependent on cheap drugs which are coming from India. Now, if there is a particular pharma company or a few pharma companies which decline because of this overall atmosphere and they fall by 25-30% without any change in fundamentals, so those are the kind of things one would like to really keep on radar and buy.
Okay, that's a strong call going out that Madhu is convinced that at least in the near future, pharma should be spared from all this tariff noise and this whole tariff conundrum. We'll keep that in mind, Madhu. Now, you mentioned GST, and that's a decisive step you said that the government has taken. Now, in the stock market, the excitement was there, but then it fizzled out as well very, very quickly, just in terms of, day-to-day price action. But really, what would you advise investors? Could this be a meaningful leg up for FMCG stocks or consumer stocks? Because the thing is that mass consumption has not made money for investors in a long time. It's been only about discretionary consumption. Do you see that changing, Madhu?
I see that changing, Surabhi. I think I'm making a much bigger point. See, we have lived through in India in 35 years, and we have lived through the regime of our Prime Minister Modi for 11 years, and we have seen him as a chief minister for many years in Gujarat. At least if you go by history, whenever there is a challenge thrown at him or thrown at this government, they have acted decisively. So my point is, GST cut may just be the beginning, and there will be many more steps which may be on the way to make sure that the domestic economy gets boosted. The entrepreneur in India are feeling more comfortable. They take, for instance, Decriminalization Act. They have already removed 350 items. But more importantly, they are talking of removing another 1,000 items and make it decriminalized. So what my point is, only we will know after 4 months what all was the plan. And I'm watching and I'm hearing as much media and from public sources as you guys are. But my personal call is that the government is on the front foot, and they will do everything and whatever is needed to make sure that we pass through this impasse and we come out stronger. So that is a bigger call. The GST cuts in itself is a very good starting step. But maybe there are many more things which will come over the next 3-4 months.
No, absolutely. Take your point, and perhaps we'll see more decisive announcements. And we've been seeing that, whether it is the case for greater local manufacturing, defense, etc. But again, just to go back to that question, for the here and now, Madhu, would it be right to assume that consumption stocks could be, the next couple of months at least could be good for them? Or is that too simplistic a feel? Because I'll throw another stat out. While there is GST cut, while there is income tax cut, the wage growth of BSE 500 companies, again in the first quarter, was just 7%. And it's been that way for the last 5 quarters in a row. And this is a stat I picked up from Novama. I was going through their Q1 review. So should one again put all their hopes or most of their hopes on a FMCG or consumer durables kind of a revival?
Ruby, I would say this has to be a bottom-up call. As you rightly said, it may be too simplistic to say that you just buy the sector because there's going to be a GST rationalization. But I would surely look at on a bottom-up basis companies which have real promise, because of GST and because of their own strategies which they are following of having at least a much higher growth in this segment. So those are the companies one would like to back. And if you remember, liquor is one sector which is again falls under consumption. And we spoke about in detail. And fortunately, by the grace of God, that is done really well. So we will have to identify pockets like that, Surabhi, to be able to make some differentiated alpha in this market.
Absolutely. A bunch of more questions, Madhu, but I know it's market closing as well, so we'll leave you to it. Thank you very much for joining us, and really appreciate you.
It's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.